Welcome back, Wolfpack. Verlis here. Terastalizing is too much. Triple stab. Weakness switching. It won't fit. Nothing's cramming into the brain anymore. I have to do it the hard way. It's not working. And I think the worst part is I've had to do this take 6 times. So I'm just getting dumber. Not a single person in the Pokemon community is prepared for the consequences of being able to take any Pokemon in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and just add another type to it for offensive bonuses. But that is what we just learned from the recent media coverage of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and this is the biggest news coming from that entire press event, and it's not an exaggeration to say this changes everything. So I want to do my best to prepare myself, but then bring you guys along for the journey, and then we're going to see like what madness ends up coming out of all of the crazy new Tera possibility we have to understand in less than a month before the games come out. Now, one thing I want to be very clear about is I see this as a positive for casuals in competitive Pokemon. That this might seem daunting, this might seem more overwhelming and needing calcs and craziness than ever before, but I also see that this now gives anyone the opportunity to find one Pokemon they really like and make it theirs. You can find a combination of Pokemon, EVs, moves, and Tera typing to add into your team that no one else will come up with. There's just too much possibility. And because of that, you can take a Pokemon that maybe people aren't expecting, that people don't use, that maybe wasn't viable before, and be able to beat someone well above your skill level because they're just so off guard. Like, it's impossible to prepare for everything now. So I think there's going to be a record amount of, like, fluke wins, but then that's going to, like, encourage people and inspire them. That instead of, like, I'm going to try the Battle Stadium, and then getting blown out the second you hit Great Ball tier, and then struggling to, like, get through Ultra and maybe not even hitting Master because everyone's just already, like, so above you in skill level. This is going to be a good chance for everyone to succeed in some way with the Pokemon they want to in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So that, I think, is going to be awesome. Now, before I get into further breaking this down and trying to, like, set up, because this, we could talk about this every day for hours until Pokemon Scarlet and Violet comes out, not even scratch the surface. Still have maybe like 1% understanding of what's going on, if all of that even sticks. And fortunately, there's actually tools coming out. Like Makio and J-Roses, these two look like they're going to provide more help and tools than we've ever seen for any Pokemon game. We have a Terastal calculator in beta, so you can take like any Pokemon, you can add a Tera type onto it, and then you can kind of see a little bit of how this Pokemon is going to play out. You know, the original typing into its new mono typing. This is missing like an offensive type calculator, similar to Pokemon DB. And even then, you can still use Pokemon DB. It's about like going to Bulbapedia, going to other websites, and like using all the information to kind of figure out how to get the most out of your Pokemon and out of your game. And this already has like all the Pokemon, so we don't know what the full dex is just yet, but this is helpful to kind of get an idea of the Pokemon that are going to be in Scarlet and Violet. So we can't even like do our full prep until the game comes out. Maybe there's like a moveset that will just have perfect coverage and insane amount of supers because all the things that are resisted by it or neutral by it are just going to be not in the reduced dex of Generation 9. So that's going to take a little bit of time, and then when this kind of fills out, that's going to be crazy. We're also getting to the point where there's going to be a team planner. So someone said Team Builder, still a work in progress. Giga Brain, Galaxy Brain, insanity is on the way. And before I even like break this down a bit more, I do want to do my due diligence because I'm the only person in the Pokemon community that does that. And then people are saying, oh, Verlisify, you have an ego. No, it's a fact that I am the most honest Poketuber. I am also the most accurate Poketuber, but for some reason the Pokemon community just hates facts and hates me for being truthful and honest. So this is what I mean by doing my due diligence, because Austin John Play is out here just straight up lying. So crazy that Philly was the only person who learned about the 3-stab thing from a Nintendo employee. But we covered this from the Gaming Bible, and this tweet came out an hour before Philly's tweet, Details from Gaming Bible confirm Tera buffs, same type, terastalization bumps stab from 1.5 to 2x. If you change type, you keep the original stab. So that means triple typing is in play. Austin John is one of the most fraudulent, misinforming people when it comes to Pokemon, and I'm baffled that anyone supports him because of that, and then just tries to make up narratives that never existed, and now it's the hot news that the rumor leak channels are talking about. Well, this is from official press and media information, and it's not that Philly's the only one that came up with this, so I don't understand that, and then people just liking and retweeting and commenting about lies. But it's not only that, because Austin John's signature move for every new Pokemon game is being wrong. That he just rushes out, doesn't test anything, just kind of steals information that's kind of sketchy off of like Twitter, forum posts, or Reddit, and then rushes out a guide about it, but then ends up being wrong. And so wrong in a lot of cases that ends up harming people's gameplay, and then he has to make a retraction. I also find it really weird he's trying to take control of this thing that everyone's talking about because it is a very popular and revolutionary idea when he has no competitive experience. That's what the triple stab is going to affect most competitive Pokemon. But he knows nothing about competitive Pokemon. He barely knows anything about Pokemon games, which is why he's very, very frequently wrong in his guides. And yeah, I just don't understand it. And then that brings me to Centro Pokemon, who was just completely wrong about the whole Tera mechanic, because they were saying that the Pokemon loses the offensive bonuses of its original type, because they were going off of Ku's information, but Ku has always been a fraud. Just throws out tons and tons of vague information, has other people speculate on it, and then some of it ends up being kind of right. So this further exposes Ku, who you should have been skeptical of to begin with because he got most of the things wrong about Pokemon Legends and is just making like 100 vague statements about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet where we find out more and more things being inaccurate. It's not a question of if Ku is a fraud, but when he is exposed as one. But then there's also people saying like, oh, well, we should have already known this, or I already thought that. Why was everyone else wrong? Because the official website was never clear on if the Pokemon retained its original stab. The closest information we have is this right here. When a terastalized Pokemon uses a move that matches its Tera type and at least one of its original types, the boost to that move's power will be even greater. But we already knew that. Like, that was something that everyone got right, is that there's going to be some kind of bonus when you, say, have a Pikachu and then make it an electric type. Now, I was going on, like, the safe end of worst-case scenario of, like, 2.25 damage, that's double stab. No, it only goes 2x, and that is the official information. So, before our session, we were given a quick access to a graphic explaining how the phenomena will affect Pokemon in battle. And it is really weird that most outlets didn't talk about this, even though it's like the biggest thing about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. But again, other people did, and don't let narratives and lies and nonsense get in the way of that. Also, with like the whole Tera type thing, the only information we know about like the move interactions is this. Terastalizing a Pokemon allows you to enhance your battle strategies by increasing the power of any moves that you have the same type as your Pokemon's Tera type, or by changing your Pokemon's weakness. Say it's only about like Tera type interactions, and the Pokemon just becomes that type, so going off the official website, could kind of just assume like, oh, I guess the Pokemon just loses its base typing, but since that isn't the case, now competitive has completely exploded, and I was already losing my mind because I've done guides on the first generation of Pokemon under the assumption that they just become that monotype and they lose all their or like they lose their original stab. That's not the case. So now this gets even crazier. That's like where we just begin. Like, this video can't even begin to go into like, oh, what are the best coverages in the game? Like, Fighting Ghost has always been dank. And now Hisui and Zora are kind of ruining that, but oh, it's also going to be in after Pokemon Home Transfer. So yeah, like Fighting Ghost, that's like the core, and then you try to find like how to get supers on top of that. So it's going to take a lot of math. There's going to be a lot of stuff that goes into this, and yeah, too much for one video, too much for just like multiple videos about it, trying to find like which Pokemon is going to have the most optimal things, or also just other type combinations. For a while, Bolt Beam was just kind of seen as a nice bread and butter to slap on Pokemon if you had the opportunity for it. You do still have some not very effectives, but it played nice with a lot of other stuff, gives you a lot of super effective moves, and then gives you something to grow from there. But even then, like, let's say you find perfect coverage, it might not even matter because you're neutral against something that's oppressively common in the meta, but oppressively common now changes. Like, okay, I need to always have fire because of Ferrothorn. But now Ferrothorn can either get rid of the 4X and just become like pure steel or pure grass, or become an extra typing, have triple stab, and who even knows what's possible after that. Another crazy revelation to come out of all of this is that Tera Blast, the big move that Pokemon will now get like a better hidden power with their Tera type, is 80 base power. So that's actually going to strip some power from like these double down Pokemon in certain situations, or like Pokemon trying to poach into a different type. But it's still going to be crazy to have triple stab with like a Thunderbolt, an 80 base power move, and another 80 base power move, and then just going for supers, and now you just get to KO anything anyways. So yeah, like I said, we have just barely scratched the surface, and the tools aren't quite there to make it as optimal as possible, but I'm gonna stay on that. I want to get out of the gate as fast as possible when it comes to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and be like the best player in the game, because I did more research than anyone else. And again, if you want to come along for that ride, please do like, comment, subscribe, share. The best Pokemon content objectively on YouTube. But then to close out the video, I want to show how much this changes everything for Pokemon, because now a Pokemon like Cloyster goes from 6-0 scary to 6-0 devastating. Like Icicle Spear into Liquidation or Stab or Rock Blast, because you have the Skill Link ability, already terrifying Pokemon. Like if it gets that Shell Smash, it can run over entire teams. White Herb, Focus Sash, if the opponent doesn't have any priority, it gets even scarier. Hard to resist, hard to tank out into. But now it can tack on something like the Hidden Power Electric, and this is where the supers start really mattering for something like a type coverage checker or something like that, because Toxapex is in the game. Toxapex was one of the few answers to what we had on just regular Cloyster, that, okay, Icicle Spear, Liquidation, Rock Blast, Toxapex comes in, full defense Toxapex, it's fine. If it gets a stockpile, Cloyster can't really do much, and then you're in like some kind of weird scaling trading on like multiple Shell Smashes and multiple stack. The game gets ugly really quick when you start playing with setup and tanks, but overall, now like you throw in Hidden Power Electric, if that's not Tera Toxapex or they Terra'd another Pokemon, you just super them out on double boosted damage that now has 1.5x, because it's the interactions with Tera Blast are going to get weird, and that's why I have like Hidden Power. So we just have to kind of pretend this is an 80 base power move. But now you're also electric, so it's a 120 base power move. And then you still have 1.5x's on these moves, but now less weaknesses, and you're only weak to ground if you go into electric. Seems like a lot of Pokemon are going to love going into electric, which means other scary Pokemon like Toxapex, maybe not scary. Maybe you need to consider going into a different type, and then everything, again, just continues to fall apart and break down from there. Where it's like, Fire-type Toxapex can't get burned, walls out the Cloyster. I don't even know anymore. So, a Pokemon that I perceived as alright, like you go into the electric, you go into the ground for the Tera typing, just to kind of like give yourself some crazy stuff, like a Shell Smashing Pokemon that gets a Stab Pseudo Earthquake. That sounds pretty neat, and then you still also have good coverage, like Ice. Just having Ice and being able to outspeed a Garchomp always feels really good. But that was at the cost of losing the bonus damage on your primary types. So, dual-type Pokemon get ridiculous. It's like, oh, I have potential extra weaknesses, or 4x weaknesses, or just an unviable typing because of the weird dual-type. But now, no, you just jump somewhere else, you have crazy offensive strength, and it's only going to get more and more outrageous as it gets into that. And that's only one Pokemon. So then you have to think about the next Pokemon on your team, and all those possibilities for its Tera and its base type. And I still think it's going to be powerful to have the opportunity to go into an original type and then get 2x power. Adaptability Pokemon are happy. All kinds of things just keep on getting crazier. And yeah, like I said, you can just talk. You can go for an hour on a single Pokemon. And then you have to work a little bit of extra time into your next Pokemon to rebuild synergies. One thing I've been talking about, like, okay, we got Chansey Blissey in the game. Skarmbliss, but without Skarmory. Fortress? Without 4x weakness to fire? You can do it. A Pokemon that has like good core defenses, but then can switch to a different defensive type. Like, what if you have a normal type Pokemon that becomes a fairy type Pokemon? So now you take the fighting weakness, turn it into a resistance, and then fairy's still a good defensive typing. Any Pokemon with a high amount of defense or special defense can just change its Tera type, and then you have better Skarmbliss. Better Skarmbliss, but also Pokemon are running around with triple stab. It's going to be both sides, like tanks win, offensive Pokemon win, everyone wins, and then the real winners are going to be the ones that figure out who wins more and how to get the most out of it. So that's the big thing about this video. Crazy amount of details, but also with the PSA of, hey, careful who you follow because most of the people in the Pokemon community just lie to you for attention. Please stop supporting liars, frauds, and misinformation merchants. This is the generation to celebrate the beauty of Pokemon and do crazy things like we've never seen before. Even though it doesn't have like that build-up like we saw with Generation 6. Generation 6 felt like the renaissance of Pokemon to me. That everyone wanted to get in, everyone wanted to learn how to breed, everyone wanted to take a shot at competitive. That wore off kind of quick. Generation 7 was a hackfest. Generation 8 even more so. People just kind of not wanting to deal with any of that ugliness. But now Pokemon Scarlet and Violet's like, yo, you get back in, best Pokemon game, best Pokemon experience, and then everyone is just having a great time. So that's why I do it. That's why I'm honest. That's why I'm only about legitimate stuff inside of Pokemon, and it baffles me that people choose to just fall into lies. I don't know. Hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.